This is a Momentum Media production.
The SMSF Adviser Show. Your expert insights into the biggest themes shaping the SMSF advice industry.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the SMSF Adviser Show. I'm Miranda Brownlee and I'm joined by co-host Aaron Dunn. Hi Aaron.
Hi Miranda, how are you?
I'm good. We've got a special bonus episode today. We have the pleasure of speaking to Shannon Smit, CEO and founding director of Smart Business Solutions and winner of the SMSF Adviser of the Year award in the recent Women in Advice Awards. We're going to be speaking with Shannon about some of the strategies she used to help build the success of her business over the years. Welcome, Shannon, and congratulations on your recent win.
Well, thanks very much, and thanks very much for having me.
So just to start off, can you give us a bit of background about Smart Business Solutions and your own career and how it's evolved over the years?
Sure. So Smart Business Solutions, we actually founded 15 years ago. So this is our 15th year in business this year, which was quite exciting. When you start out a business, you never expect you're going to be around 15 years later. And of course, I started it 2 weeks after I had my second child. What else are you going to do when you're on maternity leave? Yeah, so Smart Business Solutions, we're based in Mornington on the Mornington Peninsula, 1 hour south of Melbourne. And I started up the business having worked for the big four accounting firms, both in Melbourne, Czech Republic, Amsterdam and New York. And I decided I would set up my own practice, bring a lot of those big four level, I guess you could say, skills and expertise down to the smaller businesses.
So Shannon, here's an interesting one for you because you just spoke about, I guess, your global knowledge and wisdom that you obviously got to experience. So how did you end up with some SMSF stuff? Because clearly SMSFs are very unique to Australia.
Yes, so the SMSFs, I guess, you often look at this practice what you preach, and I always like to know the answer to everything, which I think is a common trait in anyone that works in tax and accounting. We always like to know, as soon as there's something else new, we always like to know the answer to it. I wanted to build my own office because I don't like paying rent, so I thought I'll build my own office, and wouldn't that be a smart idea to do that in a self-managed super fund? Enter 13.22C unit trust. How am I going to do that? How am I going to do a development? And it was interesting. My parents' financial advisor at the time, I wasn't an advisor at the time, I'm now their advisor, said, oh, no, you can't do that. No one can do that. It's too hard. The laws are too hard. Don't bother looking into that. I'm not sure what your daughter's thinking with that. So, of course, that fueled me to actually literally become an SMSF expert because I researched every part of the legislation, worked it out, even got a legal opinion on it to make sure I wasn't going to upset my parents' SMSF. And sure enough, we did do a development in a unit trust, both of my parents. And since then, and I think practice what you preach, going through that whole process, I actually fell in love with SMSFs and everything about them, and was kind of on a mission to actually make sure I learned everything about them and I was able to share that with people. So the number of implementations that I have done now with so many of my clients, because I've been there at the forefront and I've gone through all of those details. So it's probably an interesting way to go from international tax and falling into SMSF, but I'm really pleased that that's actually happened.
Resonates a bit with me because there's a couple of common themes there, not the 1322C trust, but I remember when in practice, I became the expert with all the defined benefit pensions, if you remember. So compressing $2.5 million magically under, it was probably 1.2 or whatever it was at the time. And these people just, you can't do it. And you're like, yes, I can. And it's that knowledge and expertise. And I think your submission certainly is linked towards this, and the journey that you've said is that with the right effort, energy and attention to this stuff, you actually build up that expertise. And then once you develop that, you become known for it too, don't you? So Therefore, you would be the person in Mornington to go and speak to in respect to doing particular transactions now. And that is certainly an area and a way in which I felt personally that I was able to grow my own specialist knowledge. And I'm sure that's been an experience for you as well.
Yes, as soon as there's something new that comes up, or if I'm not sure, I will go off and research it. But I've had some really tricky, I guess, kind of complex, and that probably actually fuels me, but really complex situations where even people have come to me where they've been told, oh, my accountant or my advisor said something is not possible, and I've been able to pull it off and make it possible. And that's been really exciting, especially we've gone through, when you go through the SMSF audit. So everything you do, it's a bit different to your normal taxes. You are going to be audited for everything, every structure you do with an SMSF. You are going to be audited by the external auditor. So it's been some of those areas, and I do now attract a lot of clients coming in that come in for the SMSF expertise and then obviously stay for everything else, if you know what I mean.
Yep. Absolutely.
You've got quite a unique set of skills. You obviously work as an accountant, a fully licensed advisor, and a mortgage broker as well. You've kind of already touched on some of the technical knowledge that you have across so many different areas, but what kind of advantages has that given you, having that holistic planning, being able to give that holistic planning service to your clients?
It's definitely been a very big competitive advantage. And I think actually my clients really like the fact that we can then do that. And a lot of this, I often go down to a different service area because of the deficiencies I've found with dealing with, say, maybe some service providers. So I did have a lot of frustration in dealing with mortgage brokers, especially mortgage brokers trying to do SMSF lending and not understanding SMSF structures, advising my clients to do things that actually I don't think they would be even licensed to do, but advising them to do or structure things in certain ways. So hence I went off and got my mortgage broker license, and now it is something. I had a client last week, went to auction, we've done the financial advice, could go to auction, actually buy the factory, and now we're in the process of, flipping getting the factory into their SMSF. They'll move their business into this factory, and that's a very common structure we have. And for the client's perspective, they know that we have it all covered. The other part also, I think that there are some different aspects that whilst something may be great from a tax perspective, it may have an impact from a financing perspective or even from a financial advice perspective. So having an oversight of all of those areas means that I'm looking at the bigger picture and not solving a quick interim solution from let's save some tax, and I cause a problem next year when we go to get some financing or other situations that arise from that perspective. So it does actually give a lot more of a holistic approach for clients.
Yeah, so on that SMSF front then, it sounds like you're very clear in your target market. I always talk about in the SMSF industry, there's probably two rails of what's going on in the sector. We've got a much older demographic. There's nearly 30% of SMSF members now 70 and older, but we've got this real influx of younger people coming in. And it sounds like, you've really drilled down and found your core, your niche of what you do and what you do really well. And that is kind of small business owners, maybe in their late 30s, maybe 40s and 50s. Is that a very targeted approach for you in the type of demographic that you're looking for and then the types of services that you can provide?
Yes, so we have, especially on our accounting side. So I actually set Smart Business up, the Smart Business Solutions up from home, and I have never purchased the client base. So I've set the client base up. I've gone after clients that basically align to the way our firm works and have that, I guess I want to say, growth mindset. So it's not about the size of the client. It's about the way of where they want to be or how they want to operate. And so a lot of those, when you kind of attracts like, we have a lot of those growing businesses in our accounting side, and kind of the natural progression is to build up your super, especially those that are in the 30s, in the 40s. I always talk to clients about, we don't want to have a sprint in the last few years just before retirement. You want to have a slow stroll to retirement. So if we can set up an SMSF, potentially get the property into the SMSF, they can operate their business from the property, and you've got that process that keeps going on. And I have some really successful case studies that, looking at, some that have bought, say a factory now, the best part of 10 years ago, I've got one client bought it for 1.2 million. The most recent valuation is just over 3 million based on the sale next door. Now, what that's done for their member balance, they've still got quite a number of years before they get to retirement. Once they get to retirement, they'll probably sell the business. Someone will be renting the property, and, the future retirement planning as well. And I think also working with clients in their 30s and 40s, and I do a lot in the property space, but once they've got the property, the next focus is, because obviously they've got a lot of overweighting in one asset, that's a known situation, but the next focus is then starting to build up not necessarily paying off the property quickly, because I'm always a big fan of I'd rather them have a few assets growing than just one asset fully paid off. So get the loan and potentially the maximum loan possible. Use the other funds to start investing in shares and start diversifying. Maybe we get a commercial property, maybe residential, and then shares. But having that diversification so that there's a real plan in place that by the time they get to retirement, and I've got a number of clients that have even built up who like commercial properties, 3 factories, 4 factories, with a goal that once we get to retirement, they'll ideally sell one. And hopefully by that stage, they'll get the funds that will be at tax-free at that point to pay off all the other debts or thereabouts. So I always have a longer-term strategy with the clients to get them to a well-balanced portfolio, even though it might start in property. And I think a lot of advisors are not always that keen on property because a lot of them have, put their fees under, asset fees based on their assets under management and haven't really looked at the property side. So I do get a lot of people that come to me and go, oh, I hear you like property, rather than just being told you need to invest in shares.
Yep. Yeah. So, Miranda, another thing that I like here is that as Shannon was talking, there's all these strategies going through my head, which I'm sure Shannon's the same because, she made comment on the fact that, a property that might have been acquired initially around $1 million is $3 million, which means you've got longer term pension planning for, transfer balance cap, maybe the $5 million cap if that comes in as well, potentially at some point in the future. But then you've got to manage all the estate planning and transfer balance cap issues that comes out of that. So the real thing for me here, and hopefully our listeners today, which is why we wanted to do this, is to understand that there is just so much opportunity within the SMSF sector that sits within a client. So it's the opportunity strategically about getting the structures right and getting the asset mix right and where the assets need to be. And Shannon's been obviously talking to that, but it's then how you manage that risk, how you potentially fund it. And then that client will become a long-term client. And I'm sure many of these clients to you will amount to not just tens of thousands of dollars, but hundreds of thousands of dollars to your business over time. That then, again, Shannon touched on the fact that then they will move to retirement phase, and there's a whole heap of tax planning and strategic planning that sits around that as well. So from my point of view, I think it's fantastic to hear these sort of insights because this is nuts of what SMSFs are all about. It's kind of, we love just getting into the strategy stuff, and you don't need to get me stuck on the whole advice bit and who can and who can't be and all this sort of stuff. And Shannon's kind of positioned herself perfectly there. But this is the essence of self-managed super funds, and those that do it right certainly are very successful in this. And I think Shannon's a testament to that.
Yes, you can definitely see her expertise in all those strategies she's just been talking about. Are there any other sort of unique features about the business that you wanted to mention that have really driven the success of it?
I think actually even going on from the SMSF side as well, obviously in lending, we're touching more on estate planning now as well with 6-member SMSF. That's a really great opportunity for families. But with that, and I had a client coming in recently as a new client, selling a property, had brought in the kids into the property, hadn't segregated assets. Now, I know that Aaron's probably getting very excited when you hear all of that. But there's a lot of these strategies where I think that, if you're going to go into an SMSF, really start looking into and getting involved in some of the technical aspects, because I'm sure the accountant just said, yeah, sure, we can put your kids into the SMSF. They've got a property in there that the parents are retiring and we're hoping to sell tax-free. Was it segregated? They didn't segregate the assets at that point. What are the opportunities that could have been at that time? So I think it is a way of the future. I think that more and more people are becoming a lot more self-managed and want to have that self-managed super, especially those in their 30s and 40s. You're not seeing, the clients coming in saying, here's my portfolio, please manage it, and I will speak to you once a year. On my financial advice side, I've got clients that may do some investments themselves and they want us as a sanity check on some of those investments. So I think with everything that we have on technology and knowledge and information, you're going to be working more partnering with clients rather than just them giving you everything to do. And that's where I think you're going to get a lot more of these 30s and 40s business owners and investors, wanting to go into self-managed super funds that they can manage, they can help manage their own future coming through with your assistance. So it is a really big opportunity, I think, for accountants and advisors to really go watch into this space, because the number of SMSFs is continuing to rise.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly the point. If we think about that generation, they've had compulsory super. I mean, I kind of, now late 40s, but you hit that, had compulsory super your entire life. So these are people that have got increased financial literacy, they've got compulsion. So the asset values to consider SMSF is far greater than ever before, and their interest in it is far greater than ever before. So it's identifying those things within your practice and how you want to position that, which I guess leads me on to the last question for me about what tips you have for other SMSF professionals, obviously looking to work in this space. One of the big challenges always is how they grow this part of their business. So what are the key takeaways, I guess you'd say to our audience today?
Is making sure that, I guess, that you get the technical capability and build yourself up on that, and even undertake some of the, extra training that you can do, whether it be, a subject, a master's subject, and other technical training that's available. But on top of that is speaking to your existing clients, because often we find the client base is there. And I think going out and getting more clients, helping and working with your existing client base, telling them that you're focusing on this area, and if they have any of their friends and family that can benefit from your services. I'm finding I'm getting a lot of referrals from my clients for their parents to join us and come and change to us as accountants, advisors, and for financing, which is a really nice compliment. But it also means I do actually get to see the full family situation, whereas a lot of more traditional firms have the parents and are hoping to get the kids to come in. So I think tapping into your existing client base and making sure that you're actually communicating with them and letting your client know that you can help them in these services before they start looking for someone else to assist them.
And I think to that point, quite often, we kind of look at things like estate planning and we might go, it was done 5 years ago. Well, things change pretty quickly, both in financial circumstances. We think about what's happened in the last 5 years, generally in terms of COVID, and then also, just movements in transfer balance caps and stuff. So having these ongoing conversations is obviously critical, and therefore the needle will move quite regularly with clients to ensure that sort of stuff is obviously all in order. So thank you for your time today. It's been fantastic to hear from you and some insights, and we can certainly see why, and hopefully you've been able to articulate to everyone listening today why you were a worthy winner of the SMSF Advisor of the Year at the Women in Finance Awards. So thank you once again, and congratulations, Shannon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shannon.
So, Miranda, that was a great conversation with Shannon. I think, as I said, she was definitely a worthy winner of the SMSF Advisor in the Women in Finance Awards. What were some of the key takeaways for you from our discussion with her today?
Yeah, you could definitely see her passion for everything SMSF when she was talking. She really knows all those complex strategies, whether it's to do with trusts or putting property in for business owners and all that kind of thing. So it was really interesting talking to her. I think some of the key takeaways for me were just sort of the importance of either sort of tapping into the children of your existing client base to try and get to that next generation, or perhaps targeting that younger demographic, as they're inevitably going to be sort of the longer lasting clients over the years.
Yeah. So for me, those kind of rails that I spoke about do become really important. And one thing that, as I think I talked about in the podcast as well, that resonated is Shannon got really good at something within the SMSF area. So she got to know and unpack how 1322C arrangements worked, because she needed to do something for her own circumstances. And what typically happens when you do that sort of job and you have to involve other parties in that, and this is quite common when you do like transfers of property, business real property into super, and you might be looking at small business concessions, you might be looking at stamp duty concessions and a whole range of things. You become known for this stuff. And it might be locally within your community, it might be within a Rotary Club, but there's a demographic that it is attached to. And in her case, it was small business owners in her area, and things just really snowball from there. And it can be quite common that you become known for a certain area, and therefore that in itself drives business. And from there, it's then about, well, how do you then capitalize on this stuff? It's what are the content, what are the materials are you presenting to different groups within the area and so forth. And she seemed to articulate that very well, that has become really kind of bread and butter to what she does when she talks to her business clients about the strategies that sit within that and taking that long-term view to developing wealth within inside superannuation.
Yes, it was great talking to Shannon. And as you said, she's definitely a worthy winner of the award in the Women in Finance Awards this year.
Excellent. Well, as is always the case, if you do have any suggestions for topics and speakers in respect to our SMSF Adviser show, how can they get in contact with us, Miranda?
So they can get in touch at editor@smsfadvisoronline.com.au.
Well, everyone, I hope you enjoyed this special edition of the SMSF Adviser show. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to you joining us for our next episode of the SMSF Adviser show. Take care and bye for now.
Imagine being rushed to hospital.
Yep.
And your life changing in an instant. Imagine going through hundreds of tests and 46 weeks of chemo. Now imagine you're a child. That's why Starlight exists, to bring happiness to seriously ill children. Please donate at starlight.org.au.